Can you hear me? Is this thing on? Is there a switch or is there a knob somewhere?
This is truly a Sacramento gem. For those of us who live in the capital city, the California State Railroad Museum is one of the first places we think of when we try to figure out where we're going to take our visitors. The first route you come to in the museum is very impressive. It's a recreation of the crossing of the Sierra Nevada by that first transcontinental railroad back in the 1860s. It tells the story of the Big Four, who were Charles Crocker, Mark Hopkins, Collis P. Huntington, and Leland Stanford. But it also tells the story, without sugarcoating, of how the Chinese laborers who largely made the railroad crossing possible were discriminated against and very much taken advantage of. This quote by Governor Stanford is especially atrocious. Take your time as you go through that initial large first room. Once you're done, you move on to the rest of the museum, which has so much to offer. You will see people and this cat. One of the first cars you'll see is this one. It hasn't been restored to any great extent, but it's interesting nonetheless. It was used in many Hollywood films, and also it was used by the suffragettes or the suffragette movement. And those holes apparently or reportedly were made when they stuck posters on the side of the railroad car during those suffragette journeys.
This car is kind of cool because it was purchased by a couple of railroad buffs after World War II who turned it into their own private residence. And they held all sorts of parties and hosted other occasions here. This display, which has been here for as long as I've been coming to the museum, shows how fruits, vegetables, other produce was transported via train, via ice cars. My paternal grandfather used to work as a postal clerk on the railway line between Angola, Indiana, and Chicago. And so I've always been attracted to this particular car, which displays a post office railroad car of that era, the 20s and 30s. Pretty much everywhere you look in this museum, there's something interesting to see or some creative way of sharing information. This is one of my favorite parts of the museum, where you encounter two cars. The one on the right is a sleeper car, and the one on the left is a dining car. And it's a lot of fun to go inside, walk the length of them.
About a dozen years ago, when our daughter was still pretty young, we would bring her to the California State Railroad Museum and go upstairs. The Tommy the Train exhibit and play area was just a wonderful place for kids, usually between the ages of, say, 3 and 6. Not far from that is an elaborate miniature train scene. There are 4 tracks, and people can push the 4 buttons to get the trains running, although there is a pause every now and then as the trains don't run continuously. They have to rest for a few minutes before they go again.
Toy trains are really not my thing, but there are many, many examples of them on the second floor of this museum. They used to show a very informative, entertaining film here, but in recent years, it has not been offered. And when I asked, they said there are no immediate plans to reinstitute it. Oh well, here's hoping that someday they can bring something back. This part of the museum pays tribute to the Golden Spike, which was the last spike in the Transcontinental Railroad. That was back in 1869. Promontory Point, Utah.
Have a great time.
On the southwest side outside the museum is the roundhouse. And this is how train cars are able to be rolled into the museum. They come from tracks that extend to the south. The cars position themselves on this rotating track, which spins around to allow entry into the proper door inside the museum. Throughout the year, excursion trains operate nearby the museum, just about 100 yards away. And people board in this area. There are open cars as well as closed ones. In the summer, the open ones could get pretty hot. There's a bit of a closer look at one of the open cars available on these excursion trains. You can see some of the West Sacramento landmark buildings across the Sacramento River. The excursion trains head south, not very far. They only go about 20 minutes one way, turn around and come back. That's the Tower Bridge, visible on the right. And all this, the museum, past excursion trains, and many other sort of old-timey things can be found in Old Sacramento. Here's where people buy their tickets for the excursion trains if they have not done so online. Well, I sure hope you've enjoyed touring the California State Railroad Museum. And knowing how these things work with me, I anticipate there will be future vlogs related to train travel. Meanwhile, take care.